Confab, confab, confabulation. 音の科学者グアム。
Institutions in regard to this work, and we're really, seeking to really build an audience of people, who, to give a real keen insight into the challenges facing the criminal justice system. And some of those things will.
When I was a prosecutor, we were required to go into schools in Brooklyn and actually teach criminal law to students. And I'm talking, elementary school for the most part. And it was amazing to me, actually pretty sad. I would be talking about everything from drugs to guns to murder, and children would raise their hands and they would say, oh yeah, I know what murder is. My dad's away in prison for murder right now. Or my brother sells drugs, or this or that. And the exposure that they were receiving with respect to the law wasn't the kind of exposure we hope for our kids, right? If we're talking about educating, we prefer that they're not educated based on negative experiences. We prefer positive experiences. But, it was just pretty sad to see. Now, if you flip it, Samantha, you mentioned charter schools. I'm a part of I'm on the board of a pro Restoring America Recovery Education. And what we do is we go into jails and we speak to individuals and we try to educate them on credit. But the founder of this program, also known as Credit Concepts, he goes into charter schools, only charter schools right now. Why? Because they're the ones that have the funding. And what he's doing is educating these schools on credit. That's something we were not exposed to as young children. So there are just multiple platforms, multiple levels of consideration we really have to give. Terrence, you spoke of, I think maybe briefly, police encounters and so forth and so on. When we talk about police encounters, it's too late, because the officers that are policing already have these preconceived notions of what it's like to live in an urban environment, of what it's like maybe to be facing poverty, of what our rights are, so forth and so on. It's way too late. It's not as if when they enter the academy, they're going to be able to have those preconceived notions deleted from their minds. It's never going to change. Many of these officers are policing communities they did not grow up in. So I don't care how much training you have, you're never going to fully understand the dynamics of that neighborhood. And consequently,
you know what I mean?
Yes, and I appreciate that very much. It's a thing with me now that I guess at this point in my life and with my experiences, I am very careful about what I instruct and how I guide in my efforts to be responsible. I don't want my motivations to be emotional, and I don't want to pass that emotional motivation on to others, because more times than not, when you speak of race, it becomes hatred and anger, and that leads to chaos and confusion. And now I'm learning something, and that is a lot of people don't know how to think. We weren't taught how to think. We speculate and reflect, but we weren't taught how to reason. We didn't learn how to deduce. And it takes those higher education to teach you how to think, how to make rational decisions. So when you have children and parents in a society that's built on irrational decisions and emotional misdirections, there's only going to be chaos. There's only going to be confusion. That's where oppression comes in, and prejudices come in, and bias comes in. It's now, for me, it's a position now of becoming more reasonable. having better principles, instilling stronger values. These things escaped us over the generations. Plantation psychosis, I think it was called.
Yeah.
It was at a time, yes, it was at a time.
Because this is something that our children are facing, whether they live in the projects or whether or not they live in Beverly Hills and they're going to a top school.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
They're
But see,
still not getting equal treatment.
you know, but here's the thing.
You know, whereas a Caucasian kid, I don't see any Caucasian kids getting arrested for selling candy or lemonade.
Exactly.
So what's really going on here? You know?
Samantha, if I could, I want to thank Don for that, and Samantha, thank you for that. I was in a few conversations with some candidates this week who were actually going to advocate on behalf of that family in regards to that situation. I can tell you, as I looked at it, you know, I was infuriated. And the reason I can say that is because, you know, although I have this prestigious career at New York University, I live in Harlem. So there's almost like this time machine I go through, where on West 125th Street, when I'm there, I see law enforcement through a different lens. I see young men, people of color, being more criminalized for behavior. Their presence there isn't like to serve and protect in the community concept.
You depend on that at this point.
Which is why we need to have more discussions like this, form more nonprofit organizations that help our children to develop, and not only and develop socially, because as you said, you know, there is a disconnect right now between the equities in our society, our societal structure in itself contradicting a lot of the values that schools try to instill in our children, and even parents try to instill in our children. We need community and youth development to help our children to understand how to navigate this society.
White America. Now, come to the country of Black America, poor Black America, then this is where all these questions come up.
That's what I'm saying is, Terrence, the only way we can really address that is if we amend the law. Even though we're not at a point where, you know, yes, there are some things that could happen in between that, but at some point we have to amend the law where at a certain age you cannot be guilty for a certain crime that developmentally you can't be held accountable for.
They try to start doing that now, actually, Samantha. Exactly. If I may, as of January, the bail laws have changed. There's been a significant bail reform, or at least push for that. So when you're talking specifically about our young individuals, I mean, take Khalif Browder, you know, huge example. Young gentleman was accused of robbing an individual for a backpack, I believe. He was incarcerated for, I think it was 2, maybe even 3 years. And out of all that time, he was actually in solitary confinement for the majority of that time. His case was subsequently dismissed. The district attorney's office, this was Brooklyn, I believe, district attorney's office didn't even tell the defense attorney that the complaining witness in that case had already gone to Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, and was not even participating in the prosecution of his case, perhaps because he knew Mr. Browder was not guilty. Long story short, the case was subsequently dismissed. Afterwards, I think he was out maybe 2 years or so. I may be wrong on that, but he was out for some time, and he unfortunately committed suicide. As a result of everything he went through while being incarcerated, he was destroyed. He was just destroyed mentally, emotionally, and he just could not recover from that experience. So as a result, New York State now no longer allows individuals to be required, and rather to be housed in solitary confinement for any longer. I think it's maybe, I want to say 30 days.
30 days.
I could be wrong. 30 days? Okay.
Which is
And
too long.
right, consecutively, 30 days consecutively. Now, of course, you can see what can happen easily. If you have a correction officer who has it in for an inmate, they may take them out for a brief period of time and put them right back in. Now that 30-day cycle has been broken. So, how do you truly fix that? I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, we have to change the laws. We have to find ways to change these laws, because these are laws and these are rules that were made to be amended as we develop as a society. And we have to realize that what was good in 1914 or 1915 is not good in 2020. And we have to find ways to make amendments. No child should be arrested in front of their parents or alone for a mistake that they made, that is a 10-year-old mistake. No child. If there's going to be a fine or community service, the crime needs to fit the time as well. That's another big thing,
If I may, California has adopted youth offender laws as a result of the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, Miller versus Alabama. But again, that's what Jamie said. These are post-arrest. Youth offender laws, here's the thing, and this is my position on it. You arrest a child, okay, and for whatever the profile may be, whether he be black, brown, or otherwise, you release him back to a parent that's, and this is my position. And because I work with a lot of juveniles, and I work with a lawyer. Her name is Jennifer Mausers, great criminal defense attorney, and she takes the same approach as you have, Jamie, a holistic approach, and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm blessed, to be in this field. But she works with juveniles, offenders, right? And I'm listening, and to be totally honest, I'm going to be straightforward. Most officers are responding to the projects, to these urban neighborhoods, high-level gang concentrated. Let's keep it real. Would you go in there with these children have guns that big as your arm, 13, 14 years old, and cop goes in there, and he's more times than not, their arrest is legitimate. The arrest is legitimate. How it proceeds, in custodial interrogations, that's one thing. Let's go back. Let's look at this child who's been arrested. This child has been arrested for possession of a firearm, assault, attempted murder, and his mother is where? His father's where? Somewhere on drugs, and not wanting to work, poor parenting. This child is in the street. They're not going to an Ivy League school or a neighborhood or community and picking up little Johnny. They're going to pick up little Tyrone and his homeboys who've been shooting up and killing everybody and terrorizing the neighborhood. Let's be honest. I mean, let's take some accountability here. Yes. Let's just keep it real.
I totally am with you on that. And that's crime has to fit the time. The time has to fit the crime. But so does the social reform too. Because
but listen, in regards to that, Don, one of the things that we have to say, and we have to, particularly like when you just said, here in New York, we had stop and frisk. Stop and frisk laws violated so many innocent. We know the isolated.